Now, just last week, I published the beginner's guide to shooting in manual mode with your camera. Now, in that video, we covered the basics of shooting in manual mode, including aperture, shutter speed, ISO. Now, in this video, we're going to turn things up a little bit. We're going to discuss composition and the various techniques that you can use right now today to create stunning photographs. Now, composition is the essential aspect of photography that can help you take your photos to a whole nother level. And by understanding and, more important, implementing some of the basic compositional techniques, you can capture beautiful images and really pull the viewer into your shots more. Now, just like last week, after we discuss each of the key topics in this video, specifically we're talking about the rule of thirds, we have symmetry, leading lines, and framing. There's going to be a practical exercise for you to apply what you just learned hands-on. Now, my recommendations remains the same. Watch the entire video from start to the end. First, then circle back around, pause it after each lesson, and get out there and practice what you just learned. That said, my friend, let's get started. Now, first up, we have the good old faithful rule of thirds. Now, one of the most basic and widely used compositional techniques in photography, and chances are, if you might have heard of it already. Now, the rule of thirds, this involves dividing your frame into 9 equal parts using 2 horizontal and then also 2 vertical lines. Then you place the subject of your photo at one of those points where the lines intersect. Now, this is going to create a much more dynamic and visual interesting image than simply placing your subject in the middle of the frame. Now, you can also use the rule of thirds to create a sense of movement in your photos by positioning your subject along one of the vertical or horizontal lines. For example, if you're taking a photo of a person riding a bike, you can position them along the right-hand vertical line to create a sense of movement from right to left. Now, the rule of thirds can also be used to balance your image by placing elements of interest along intersecting lines. For example, the image of the Great Wall of China places the elements along the vertical and horizontal grid to keep a creative and well-balanced shot. Now, just remember though, the rule of thirds, man, this is a guideline. It is not a hard, fast rule. So don't be afraid to experiment and break the rules. Create your own unique compositions. Now, symmetry is another one of those powerful compositional techniques that can create a sense of balance and harmony in your photos. Now, symmetry involves dividing your frame in half and creating mirror image on both sides. Now, this can be achieved by finding a subject that has a natural symmetry, such as a building, or positioning your camera in a way that creates symmetry. Now, create symmetry, you can experiment with different angles and perspectives. So, for example, you can shoot straight onto a building, create symmetry image, or you can shoot a landscape, for example, with water in the foreground to create a mirror image. Now, kind of food for thought here. You got to be careful not to overuse symmetry in your photos, as it can become repetitive and boring. Now, another compositional technique is leading lines, and this happens to be one of my favorites here. See, leading lines are lines in your photos that lead the viewer's eyes into the subject itself. Now, these lines can be anything from a road or a fence, a river, even a bridge. The goal is to use these lines to create a sense of depth and perspective into your photos. Now, to use leading lines effectively, you need to position your camera in a way that captures the lines and leads the viewer's eyes into the subject itself. And you can also use leading lines to create a sense of movement in your photos. For example, if you're taking a photo of a person walking on a bridge, you can use the bridge leading lines to create a sense of motion. Now, moving on to framing, this is another compositional technique that can create a sense of depth and dimension in your photos. Now, this basically involves using objects in your environment to frame your subject. Now, this can be anything from a window or a door, tree, or even a bush. To use framing effectively, you need to position your camera in a way that creates a natural frame around them. Now, this can also help draw the viewer's eye into the subject and create a more engaging image. Now, one little side note about framing. This is one of my, I go back and forth between leading lines and framing. These are a couple of my 2 favorites that personally I really like to get out there and experiment with. With framing, now when I go out and I do a particular shoot, I will then, once I get the shots that I want, my main shots, I will then take some time and I'll start walking around and I'll start bouncing between trees, or, getting down low, or, just getting behind items and just framing up to see what I can get there. One of my favorite shots is you might see a couple trees going up like this. If you get your camera in, right close there where that frame is only seeing those trees going up, and then you have that center opening there that you can see something through the distance, that is a really cool shot. But it just, again, it's all about opening up your eyes and just understanding what these techniques, that they are there, but they're also meant to be bent and used to your advantage. So have fun with them. Now remember, composition is an essential aspect of photography. It can help you create a much more engaging and captivating images. So get out there and practice. As I said last week, practice. I mean, the more you get out there and practice, you have digital cameras, you have unlimited numbers that you can get out there and just start tooling around and experimenting. And experiment with different types of techniques that works best for you. You might even find that combining some of these techniques that we just spoke about are going to get you the absolute best images that resonate with the style that you're after. But friends, that's all I have here for you today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, so you can get some more photography tips and tutorials just like the one that you just saw. But friends, I'm going to be heading off, so you get out there and take your best shot.